Are you ready?
I guess so, yeah. Let's do
Well,
this.
well, I'm so happy to have you today as my guest, Kathryn, the
Thank
third
you,
guest,
Lucas. Yeah,
yes,
privileged
on
to
my
be here.
podcast. Oh, brilliant. I'm looking forward very much to what you will have to share with us today. So I will just give a quick intro to you and to the episode. So Kathryn's story as an entrepreneur began back when her employment outsourced her IT job, which was a blessing in disguise, you mentioned. And
Yep.
then you mentioned following a traumatic divorce, you now run a successful network marketing business. And you've invested a lot of time and money in personal development. And you now have the pleasure of working with many of the friends that you've made since then. And we'll be talking about the difference between the employee and the self-employed mindset and the path we're led down from an early age, depending on our parents and the people who influence our beliefs. And you want to raise awareness that we're all capable of much more and that we have set our own limitations. Yeah, and I'm very excited to welcome you here and to listen to what you have to say and what you have to share with us. I'm ready to take some notes.
Thank you, Lucas. I think I'm excited to be here. This is a first for me. So yeah, as I said, privileged to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. And yeah, I'm going to add some value to some of the
Mm,
questions that I know you want to explore.
brilliant. So why don't we start where you said your entrepreneurial journey began when you had an IT job, right? And then
Mhm.
that ended and you were like they fired you or you lost that job.
Yeah.
Maybe tell us what happened there.
Yes. Okay. Okay, so yeah, I followed the age-old plan that probably, and I think it's still being talked about in schools these days. Get that good education, go to
Hmm.
university, and I think back when I went to university, which is some time ago now, it was for, that was for the people who wanted to become more educated, wanted to go down the academic route. Whereas now it's just seems to be that it's just taken for granted that that's where people are going to go. The
Mm.
technical colleges, certainly here in the UK anyway, hit a demise, and it was sort of like everyone was expected, if you like, to go to university, which I
Hmm.
think is a little bit sad. So yeah, so I followed that plan anyway. I went to university. I came out, didn't find a job immediately, despite
Hmm.
having had that belief that you get a good education, so it's going
Hmm.
to lead to a good job. But I did eventually get a job in a hospital, which was 25 miles away from where I lived at the time. So I
Okay.
I moved due to commuting and
Hmm.
not wanting to put up with that commuting, which I know lots of people I think are fed up with these days. And
Mm.
working from home now has become possibly a little bit more normal. Anyway, I pursued my job then. So my background is in genetics, actually. And that's what I
Oh,
was
wow.
really interested in. And that's what my degree was in. I was six. No, let's take a step back. I was privileged then to do a master's degree where I was working in
Hmm.
cancer research, which led to well, no, I suppose I've always been interested. It was IT, maths, and science.
Hmm.
But the PC was being developed then, and I needed a PC in order to crunch the numbers, shall we say, in the
Hmm.
statistics in order to complete that master's.
Hmm.
That led me into the IT industry then. So although I had no qualifications in IT, I think it was more personal qualities. And I suppose that
Hmm.
sort of leads to, yeah, okay, what is success really about? Is it those
Mm.
qualifications, or is it something a little less tangible? Because like I said, I was successful in getting that job in IT. They paid me more as well, which was wow. How does that work? With
Uh-huh.
2 degrees in science and nothing in IT, and yet the personal skills were obviously worth much more.
Oh, uh-huh. So that started to shake something on your beliefs, where you were kind of surprised that you were doing something that you even hadn't even studied for actually, but you were being paid more than you would earn in that field that you actually studied for? That must have been
Yeah. Well,
confusing for
yeah.
you.
Actually, because as I said, that's what I was led to believe. Go and get
Mm,
that education, get a job, set up for life, retire, live happily ever after. Well, that
mhm,
plan hasn't worked for some time, and it certainly didn't work for me. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed both the time I spent doing research in science and the job I had in IT.
mhm,
It ah, tasked your brain cells, shall we say, and it was really nice to step up to those challenges. But I suppose
uh-huh,
as life goes on, your priorities change, and what was exciting maybe at a younger age, as in all those challenges, and certainly I think in technology particularly, is moving at a far, far greater pace. So as you
mhm,
get older, you've got younger people coming out of university with all those new skills, with all those new languages. It's not quite so exciting. And with a family as well, yeah, priorities definitely changed. But there's always been something inside me, I think, that wanted to do something else. It was just a case of just really couldn't find it. And being in such a good career, such a well-paid job, the last thing I was ever going to be encouraged to do was to make that leap, take that leap, and do something else.
mhm,
Whether it's for yourself, be more satisfying, and certainly if it was going to pay an awful lot less as well,
mhm,
which is why I mentioned the blessing in disguise, to
mhm,
be fair, because it wasn't something that I was ever going to do for myself, but that decision was taken away from me and everybody else who worked in the department. Because globalization happened, it was cheaper to employ people elsewhere, and that's exactly
mhm.
what happened. So that forced me
Wow.
into looking for something else. So I decided to take some time out, which
Mhm,
didn't go down very well at home, I have to say, because being the bigger earner, yeah, that wasn't something that was expected. But having worked for so long, it was nice to take that time out and think, what do I really want to do? Do I really want to go back to work in the IT industry, which was quite a high pressure job as well?
mhm,
And I thought, do you know what? No, I've always fancied doing something for myself. So it was a case of looking around and just seeing what opportunities would come about.
mhm. So to kind of when I'm zooming out, what happened is went to university, you really enjoyed the research, then kind of by accident you got into an IT job, which you also
Yep.
enjoyed, and you started earning more in that job. But then after some time, I mean, and you were earning well, and you had this feeling that, oh, maybe there's something else out there for you, but that wasn't really on the plate because you were earning really well, and so that wasn't really, yeah, that wasn't such a priority for you, but then you were kind of forced to take a second look by actually
Yep.
being laid off and then having the opportunity, and you took a conscious break, it sounds like. So,
That's exactly it. Yes,
mm,
absolutely. Although having two young children at home, with us having lost that one income, yes, that didn't go down particularly well. But there we go. We make our
mm,
choices, don't we, really?
mm. And how did you manage that actually?
How
If
did I
you,
manage?
yeah, the or your family, the whole situation, like you going out there, then you found some way to take time for yourself and to reorient.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to purport that it was easy, and it wasn't an
Yeah,
easy decision. A much easier decision would have been just to go back and work for
yeah,
someone else and look for that IT job or whatever,
yeah.
realistically. But there's sometimes that little voice inside you saying that's not the right way to go,
Mhm.
and that's exactly how I felt.
And you listen to that voice, obviously.
I did, for a change, yeah, because I think
Mm.
we all tend to silence that little voice, don't we, and say, no, no, don't be silly, don't be silly. That's not for me.
Are you grateful today when you look back on your decision?
Oh, 100,000%, Lucas. Absolutely. Yeah, when I look at my lifestyle now compared with then, absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah.
So And continuing there, like you're taking this conscious break and you're looking around at kind of opportunities, or
Yeah.
how did that go?
Okay, I mean, it did take some time. You know, it was nice to spend some time at home
Hmm.
with being able to not just pick my children up from school, which is what I used to do. So my
Hmm.
ex-husband used to drop them off at school and I used to pick them up. But that gave me the chance to do both. And I know there's lots of people who would love that opportunity to be able to do that,
Hmm.
but obviously they're beholden to their job, their boss, etc. So that was nice for a few months, and it was just a case of looking round. I guess the internet wasn't quite so big then, so it was looking around in papers and things, just
Hmm.
looking for something that jumped out at me, if you like.
Hmm. Hmm.
And what jumped out at me at the time was an opportunity, a sales job
Uh-huh.
to sell orthopedic type beds, which
Hmm.
where did that come from? From genetics and IT? I have no idea. But that sort of started and I thought, well, what do I have to lose really? Let's go and do training in something completely different.
Hmm.
That didn't last for that long because I just couldn't get my head round the concept of commission only and no guaranteed income any month
Uh-huh.
for
Hmm.
effort that you put in, and it is a completely different mindset.
So
So,
that
so
was.
I worked there for just a short period of time, but then, funnily enough, something else that jumped out to the paper, however long past that, was double glazing. And I know if there's anybody listening here in the UK, they're probably going to think, "Oh my goodness, double glazing salespeople." Yeah, they've got a really bad rap, and they are the epitome, I guess, of sales done badly, I think. uh, but whatever you take out of whatever training you do, still you can use it in other parts of your life. And it wasn't something that I particularly enjoyed doing, I have to say. I
Mhm.
was reasonable at it, but I think I have to be grateful for the confidence that it gave me to move on with my life. And I guess that's what I'm saying, really. It's just the different skills that you pick
Mhm.
up from different areas of your life, whether that's personal, business, jobs, etc. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting. So you had no previous experience with sales, and then
No,
you started this first sales job selling the beds, right?
yep,
The
did. Yeah.
commission-based one, and then you went with double glazing, and obviously you had training there, I guess, which you
Yes.
mentioned. So a lot of people have hesitation when it comes to selling, and they have certain blocks when it comes to selling. So how did you manage that? You were starting completely fresh with the sales. Like what was that like for you? I'm really curious.
Uh, well, I'm going to say probably as scary as it was to say
Yeah.
yes to you today to come on and talk to you in front of people, to be fair, because I think anything that you start off with is scary, isn't it,
Mm.
really? But as the saying goes, you can stay in that comfort zone forever. And yes, you can be comfortable, but nothing ever grows there. You don't develop
Mm.
yourself, nothing really happens. You just stay there. So it was a case of steeling myself and just getting out there and just doing something different. And yeah, as I said, I think most people, if you mention sales to them, would think, "Oh, no, definitely that I couldn't do that. I'm not a salesperson." But when you think of it, realistically, we're all salespeople. Do you know whether we sell ourselves when we go to a job interview
Mhm.
or whether we sell ourselves to the partner that we want finally to be intimate with? We are selling ourselves every single day.
Mhm.
But I don't think anyone ever thinks of that as sales.
So you're saying there's not this line like here's my life, and then over there, there's the sales, maybe the sales aspect of my business, or you're saying that that's not like that because sales is already part of our life, so to speak. That's what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think it's just looking at it from a different perspective. The same as anything, I suppose, isn't it, really? It's that different perspective, which might
So
be quite shocking, I guess, for some people to think,
mm,
oh, wow, I never thought of myself as a salesperson.
so people already are salespeople. If they say they don't want to be a salesperson, they already, in a sense, they already
Yeah.
are. They just don't call it that.
No, exactly.
Hmm. So I'm curious because when I had Chaminda on, he was also talking about sales because for him that's also a big part of his business, and I mean,
Hmm.
of course, of any business. But
Yeah.
how do you think about the process of sales if you have somebody in front of you that you're selling to, let's say? What's your approach to that, if you want to go into that?
Okay, so again, you can look at this from a different perspective, can't you? People like to buy.
Hmm.
People have, and I'm not going to say needs, because people tend to buy for what they want rather
Hmm.
than what they actually need.
Hmm.
So I think
Hmm.
from a sales perspective, it's pointing out why people would actually want to buy something or invest in, or however it is you want to put it, what you have to offer as your business,
Hmm.
rather than telling them why they actually need it.
Hmm. Hmm. So you're
And I think you have to believe in whatever it is you are selling to them, and you have to believe that it is the right solution for them. Or certainly from my perspective of sales, I
Mhm.
could not authentically sell somebody something that wasn't right for them.
Mhm.
That there's no point in that. And again, that's from my perspective.
Mhm. So you're saying it's about understanding why they want to buy something. It's not about you talking about like what you have in your head, but trying to really understand why they would buy it, you say what their want is, not necessarily their need, but what
Mm.
makes them want to buy it, getting kind of in
Yes,
there. Mhm.
yeah, realistically, because we all buy emotionally, don't we? And then we logically either say that was the right decision, or we logically talk ourselves out of it.
Mhm.
But we tend to buy from the heart, realistically, and I
Mm.
think that's uh, and I think there are the good salespeople out there, I think, sell from their heart because they know it will actually work for someone rather
Mhm.
than
Mhm.
for the sake of it, for
Mhm.
the sake of that commission.
Mhm. Which means the believing in what you're selling. And Chaminda, he also, interestingly enough, he talked about it. He says if you are convinced of something, your own emotion, it's going to transfer to the other person. And if you're doubtful, then they're going to pick it up and they might even be repelled by that, which is really interesting. Hmm.
Yes, exactly. We're always given the example, if you're desperate for that commission, I don't know, it's going to pay your mortgage or it's going to pay your council tax or whatever it is,
Hmm.
that energy does transfer to the person that you're sitting in front of. And that's one of those non-tangible things, but it is there. Yes, absolutely.
And so how do you actually deal with that situation? Let's say somebody they are in that situation where they feel they're desperate to make a sale and they're having this attachment, they can't be free of the outcome or they can't go like, hey, I'm whatever happens, I'm at peace with that because they aren't. Like what do you tell them?
Um, what would I tell them? That's a really good question. Goodness, Lucas, what would I tell them? I guess it's going to depend on their values as well,
Hmm.
isn't it?
Hmm.
Realistically, because they may be desperate, but they may, from their perspective, have no compunction to say, I don't care whether this is for you or not. I just need to sell it. And whether it's useless to you or useful, it doesn't really matter. It just gets me that money in the bank.
Mm.
But that's a question for their values,
Mm-hmm.
realistically. I think anyone who's going to be selling from a belief perspective, from a heart perspective, they'd be far more likely to put the suffering, if you like, on themselves and say, okay, it's not right for this person. The fact that I can't pay this bill or something this month, that's my problem, but it's not their problem.
Mm-hmm. Wow, yeah, that's a very mature way to look at it, and also to take care of the other person that you're actually talking to in terms of taking responsibility. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because do you know, when you are selling whatever it is you're selling, the best way to get more sales is to get referrals from the people that you've already sold to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you imagine somebody that you've just sold something to that is completely irrelevant, no use to them whatsoever? Are they going to refer you on to their friends, family, work colleagues? I think we all know the answer to that one, don't we, really? And word of mouth is definitely the best form of advertising.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, you're looking at maybe a short-term view when you do that, rather than the longer-term view.
Mm-hmm. Which is funny because Chaminda also talked about this. I'm
Right.
picking up some patterns here apparently, which
Okay.
is super interesting
Okay.
that you also mentioned that. Yes. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm. So, and the reason I went a little bit into the sales is because I feel it's very important for people who are aspiring entrepreneurs. And it's sometimes an area that people don't want to go there, and they don't feel so comfortable with. And yes, so that's a reason why I wanted to bring that up. And I'm aware that you have
Okay.
done your quite a good amount of selling, let's say,
Hmm.
yes, in your career. So now let's talk a little bit about the entrepreneur mindset, because you mentioned that kind of the difference between the employee and the being your own boss, let's call it. And you mentioned before about the commission and the
Yes.
first commission job, and then this like there is no fixed income, right? You have the commission,
No.
and yes, so
Yes. Yes. I did refer to that earlier, and that's the biggest block, I'm going to
mhm,
say, that I think most people find it really difficult to overcome in going from being an employee, where
mhm,
you're trading your time for money every single day, every single week, but at the end of the month you're going to get paid X amount.
yes,
Whereas when you become an entrepreneur, whether that's, as I started, working on a self-employed basis for another company,
mhm,
you can go out and you can talk to however many appointments you have, but you don't necessarily make any sales that month, at which
mhm,
point, unless you have some sort of small retainer, which some companies do offer, at the end of the month, you could end up with a big fat zero in your bank account. And making that shift from a guaranteed income on a monthly basis to, it could be zero, it could be thousands, but you really don't know for that month how things are going to go. And obviously, making that shift to start with, when you've got lots and lots of skills potentially to learn,
mhm.
how much do you think, it's more likely to be closer to zero than it is to any bigger amount?
Which is a tough one, especially if you put in a lot of work and then the return isn't immediately visible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And that's exactly how it can be.
Mm.
And I didn't allude to this earlier. So I had two sales jobs, if you like, in sales training, one with the bed one and one with the double glazing, until I
Mhm.
moved on then and I set up my own business. So I've said I'm interested. My background is in science. There was a big push for solar panels, certainly here in the UK. So I set up a business to install those. So that was completely my business, well, with my
Wow.
ex-husband.
Yeah.
But that again takes an even bigger shift, if you like, in mindset, because when you're working for another company, if you like, so whether it's selling somebody else's beds or selling somebody else's windows, conservatories, etc.,
Yeah.
they are actually providing the service. They are paying you your commission.
Yes.
They are getting you the leads. Whereas when you set up your own business, you're doing all those things as well as chasing the invoices. There's just so much more. So you're spending so much more time. And I have heard it said, that essentially you're creating yourself potentially another job. But obviously, there's no guarantee that you put in 10 hours, you're going to get paid for 10 hours. But obviously, the potential depends what you want out of it. The potential is much more.
Which is, yeah, I think that's amazing what you're sharing, because you touch on so many things that I know from my own experience. And I just want to share two nuggets that I got. So the
Okay.
first one is from Atomic Habits, where James Clear, he talks about when you have an ice cube on the table and you have a cold room and you heat that room up, and a few degrees before the ice cube melts, nothing happens, which is the same in the business. You're putting in all the work and you're looking around, and maybe like it's this big fat zero that you're talking about. But then at some point, it's going to happen if you keep raising the temperature.
Exactly. Yeah. You can, you can liken that to, obviously, when you're training, let's just say you improve by just 1% every day. And that looks like nothing by the end of the week, possibly nothing much by the end of the month. But at the end of the year, you're going to have improved by over 365, unless there's a leap year, 366%, which I'm sure you would see a huge improvement. It's just those really small steps, those really minor tweaks in everything that can make a huge difference.
And what kept you going to make those steps? Talking about even that first real, let's call it business with the solar that you started. What kept
With
you
it,
going and keeping making the steps?
because I think at some point you give yourself no alternative, and
Mm-hmm.
your own challenge, or you set your own challenge, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. So I kept going with that business until sadly the government killed the feed-in tariffs, killed everything here. So the bottom just came out of that market. But luckily for me, during that I'd actually gone. No, sorry, just prior to that, I'd reconnected with somebody I'd made friends with when my children were small. The children had gone to the same nursery, so I'd gone to sell them some double glazing, and they'd introduced me to a business that they'd got involved with, which was the network marketing company that we spoke of earlier. So when the bottom fell out of the solar panel market, I had something to fall back on, which was wonderful. And going back then to working in partnership with a company rather than it being your own company. So they provide the services and you go and do what you're good at. But the fact that network marketing offers leverage can make a huge difference to the rewards and the challenges involved in that, to be fair.
And what is that leverage that you're talking about? Now you've made me curious.
Okay. If you're not familiar with the network marketing model, it has two sides to it, if you like. Companies sell their products or services, so they have customers. And the way they introduce those customers is by an independent network of people that work in partnership with them. So they talk to the people, explain to them the various advantages, etc., of the products and services. But in order to grow that business, And in order to grow a network, obviously, you need a network of people. So
Mm-hmm.
that network of people
Ah,
expands. So
uh-huh.
they get to introduce other people who would also like to become part of that
Mm-hmm.
network and show others what that product or service
Mm-hmm.
can do for them. And that's been really, really rewarding, I reckon, for me,
Mm-hmm.
because helping other people become
Mm-hmm.
successful, helping them to have what you have is rewarding in itself. Then it becomes not just about the money, but it becomes about what can you do for someone else to improve someone else's life, whether that's a customer or whether that's what would now become a business partner with you.
Mm-hmm. Wow, so the human aspect there and the leverage is actually in the people that you
Yeah, exactly.
are
It's
able to connect.
building a team of people, a
Mm.
network of people. Yeah, so you have to then again get out of your comfort zone, get some leadership skills,
Mm-hmm.
become involved in helping them become successful, which yeah, just snowballs really, and that's where the leverage comes from. So
That's beautiful. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and that way everybody wins really because everybody starts at the same level and everybody can get to the top if they have the time, the inclination, the drive, the
Mm-hmm.
motivation to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no discrimination, there's no educational background that you need, color, creed, etc. Everyone's equal. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just think don't get me wrong, no model is perfect. And yeah, I'm sure, there'll be people out there willing to point out the flaws. But at the end of the day, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
from my perspective, it's been instrumental in helping me.
Wow. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I mean, one thing that comes up for me before I was into entrepreneurship, if you would
Mhm,
have told me about like affiliate marketing, network marketing,
mhm.
like the general consensus in my surroundings, which again, that all goes to the employee mindset. Like
Yeah.
there was a lot of negativity around that, a lot of doubt. And even if I talk to people and if we're looking at courses online, like there's a lot of people that think, oh no, these courses, this is a scam and you can't
Yep.
actually do that. Like there's a doubt and fear is very much interwoven into that. So let's say somebody listens to that and they are conditioned, maybe let's call it, in a way where they're like, no, this is not really possible. Maybe for some people, but they're scammers.
Hmm.
How would you help somebody and kind of help them to open their mind, not in a
Okay.
sense to buy something from you necessarily, but for
Mhm.
their own journey to research, find out, discover new things and whatever. If it's network marketing, maybe they go down that road, or maybe that leads them into something completely different, like with your journey, where you started out with genetics, then you
Yes.
went into IT, which brought you to sales and like, yeah.
Hmm. Um, I'm just going to say you need obviously to do your own due diligence. Yes,
Mhm.
I'm sure there are opportunities out there. There are scams out there, of course there are, absolutely. But there are so many opportunities out there these days, just waiting for open-minded people to go and do their due diligence. And what I would say is you need to take advice from somebody who's actually trodden the path that you want to tread
Mhm.
rather than from well meaning opinions from friends, family, work colleagues who really have no idea about what they're talking. It's just what they've heard,
Mhm.
hearsay, etc., possibly, rather than having done the full research into whatever it is you're looking at. And at the end of the day, you need to make sure that you're not looking to be biased either, because there is that confirmation bias. If you want to find something, you will guarantee that you will find it, whether that's positive or negative. So, you do need to look at things logically and
Mhm.
make sure that you've got the pros and the cons. but definitely speak with someone who's trodden that path. And the great thing I would say with most network marketing, probably affiliate marketing companies as well, there'll be somebody out there who will be more than happy to talk to you about it.
Mhm. So just to kind of give a little bit of context, and I know you don't like to brag about it, and even if I look on your social media, like
No.
you're not somebody who brags. But what I have noticed is you actually are at the point, and you mentioned it some time ago, that you're making residual income from what you have set up,
That's
from all the work you've created. So
Yes, yes. And that was what I saw when I said these friends of mine introduced me to the network marketing business. I'd never come across the concept of residual income
mhm,
previously. And I think it was Einstein who said about, the power of compound interest.
mhm,
If people were introduced to that, that is a magical thing, if you like. And I think residual income is just as magical. I suppose if I translate that into maybe royalty income, because I think more people would probably understand it as that.
mhm,
And if I mentioned that, most people would probably think, yeah, okay, but I'm not an author. I'm not going to write a book.
mhm,
I'm not a musician. I'm not going to write a song or some music. Surely it's only those people who benefit from that sort of income. And yeah, that's what most people would probably think. However, network marketing does offer the potential to earn that residual income. And when I got made redundant, I knew that there would be a pension gap. Now, pensions these days are probably a little bit of a swear word because that pension age keeps rising. And I certainly worry for my children and grandchildren, what's going to be there for them
mhm,
when they get to whatever age. Yes. So I think realistically, we all need to do something. And I think we should all take responsibility for what is going to maintain us, if you like, in the lifestyle that we wish
mhm,
as we get older, or even for some youngsters. And it's really, really lovely to see the youngsters that have come into certainly my company and seeing the fact that they can actually have that pension income,
mhm,
can become financially free. Okay, it's not a short-term plan, don't get me wrong. We are talking about putting in time and effort. It's not, you pay to join a company and all of a sudden I think people think, oh yeah, magically the money is going to come into the account. It doesn't happen that way. You have to put in the effort. And, is it worth it? Yes, absolutely it is. But it does take hard work. But it's certainly got me to the stage now that, yeah, I work my business around what I enjoy doing, as in I love playing golf and I love playing tennis when the weather's nice, which it hasn't been here in the UK for the last 6 months, it seems. But I work the business around my hobbies rather than the other way round, which surely that's what life should be about. It should
mhm,
be about enjoying things rather than slaving over that job that people don't enjoy. That's really sad to think people, they used to say spend 40 hours for 40 years doing something that you really, really don't enjoy so that you
mhm,
can enjoy your retirement. Well, it's not even 40 years now. It's gone up to 50 years and who knows how much longer it's going to go up to. So yeah, I think there's more to life. And I think maybe some of the younger generation are now getting more into, well, yes, okay, but it has to be worthwhile. It has to be
mhm.
something that I feel comfortable doing. So
Wow. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And that's beautiful that you now have the opportunity, like you say, to structure your business around your hobbies. And I mean, I know it from myself. I know it from my mother. She worked all her life and she
mhm,
worked a lot, and her pension isn't that high, right? If you would look at
no.
all the work she's put in,
Mhm.
and I mean, and that's a point where that makes you think if that's a route as a younger person, me myself, for
Yep.
example, if you want to go down that route. Yeah.
Yes, I've been listening to some statistics, and I can't remember the actual figure, but it was said that most people here in the UK, their pension pot, if they have one, is something like £70,000. Well, that's just, how long is that going to last? It's just shocking, shocking, really. And lots of people don't even have that. And when you look at the state pension, which the age has gone up, I think it's the latest 68 or 69, I think it is now, that as youngsters go, so it's obviously going up. If you had to live on that, you were certainly not looking at retiring and living happily ever after. That's just going to be scraping along the breadline, I think, realistically, which I think is really, really sad. I know people do have other pensions rather than just the state pension, but again, if it is, for most people have 70,000 or less, yeah, doesn't bear thinking about, really, does it?
There's not so much room for playing golf there, I suppose, if you're, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, I think people will be working for much, much longer. Absolutely.
So one thing that really flagged up for me that's super interesting is because you were talking about the compound or the lever in all of this, and you said
Right.
those are actually the people. So that is, and I'm looking at the skills, like they call it soft skills, but basically the whole leadership aspect. And I mean, I can see from how you're talking that you enjoy bringing other people up, and that is something that brings you pleasure, that is something enjoyable to you. But maybe you can talk a little bit about that, what maybe something you can share about that, or what your values are around that, so people can get an impression of, or maybe some
Okay.
inspiration from you on that matter.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so I've mentioned, obviously, I'm involved in a network marketing company. Now, any good network marketing company who is worth their salt is going to introduce people to something called personal development. Now, that's something I'd never heard of prior to that, but it's certainly something that I've been really, really grateful for the introduction. So you mentioned earlier, because I told you, I went through a reasonably traumatic divorce, and I'm sure there's lots of people who can identify with that these days. I'm really, really grateful for my friends and family that were around me, but certainly with what I'd learned through the personal development that I'd gone through with my company, I don't think I would have come out of that quite as well as I did without that backing behind me. And it certainly led me much further along that journey to, I'm really, really interested in being able to achieve our full potential, because I think it's not until you sit back and you look at things and you look into things like personal development, self-development, call it what you like. We all think that we're all limited, or that's what we grow up to believe. I think that there are those limits and we can't get past those limits. But realistically, those limits have been put on us by ourselves. And the only people, the good news is the only person that can raise those limits is ourselves. But that's obviously a downside as well, because it's not always the easiest thing to do. But I mentioned comfort zone earlier. And yeah, I suppose those limits are the comfort zone that we put around ourselves. I can't do that. And I'm sure you probably grew up with your mum saying, don't say can't. Of course you can, and can't, yeah. Why do we say, no, I can't do that? But until you try, you don't know. But of course, we're not always encouraged to try. And I think, again, failure was never looked at particularly well in school. Again, because we were all, well, I was certainly taught to achieve. I went to a grammar school, so it was a case of you wanted to be in the top X%. Otherwise, that was failure, if you like. But of course, the only way that we really learn, which I've learned now, is by failing. And failing is not failing is only failing if you don't get up and learn from it. Realistically, the only way, and if you look at successful people, they'll tell you exactly that. they're successful, A, because successful people do what unsuccessful people won't do, but also they failed way more times than any unsuccessful person. But they've just got back up one more time and said, right, okay, didn't work that way. Thomas Edison is probably the best example I can think of that. 10,000 times he tried to get that light bulb to work. How many people would have given up? Well, actually, I was reading today in Napoleon Hill's Success Habits. 50% of people don't even try the first time, let alone try 10,000 times. So, yeah.
Failure, that's how we learn. That's so interesting. Because when I started my first business a few years ago, I was thinking, yes, this is going to take a few months and it's all going to work out really nicely. And then I thought, when it didn't, I thought that no, I'm a big failure and there's something wrong with me. I thought that at first, right? And that was really challenging. And I realized, like you say, if you look at all the successful entrepreneurs or people who have achieved anything, even I think there's this ad or an interview with Michael Jordan where they talk to him and they
Yes.
say, oh, like you're this extremely successful basketball player. And he says, yes, but I've missed 9,000 shots in my entire
That's
career.
right. Yep.
But he's taken those many game-winning shots, but he's missed so many. So he says he's willing to fail, and that's what enables him to be great, which is
Yes, absolutely. And I'm sure, just like everyone else on that entrepreneurial journey, certainly for myself, have I thought of quitting? Yeah, absolutely. But I think
Mhm.
you've then got to ask yourself the question: quit to what? So what is the
Mm.
alternative? You've set yourselves these goals, you set up your business or whatever it is. Don't get me wrong, you don't have to be millions in debt to realize actually this definitely doesn't work. But,
Yeah.
but you have to be sensible as well and not give up at the first hurdle.
Mm. And so you mentioned the limits though, right? That we come up to those limits, that those are like a lot of the time, or maybe all the time, self-imposed limits that we
Hmm.
have set in our mind, and it's not always easy to get over those. So what has worked for you in the past, where you've made the experience of you had a limit and you were able to maybe find a new angle, or were able to overcome that, and what were the factors that helped you to do that?
Okay, I think again, I'm going to go back to personal development, and perhaps I'll give you a personal example rather than a
Hmm.
business example on this, if that's
Hmm.
okay. So yeah, I've spent a lot of my time and invested money as well on various personal development courses, etc. And I think I mentioned I went through a reasonably traumatic divorce.
Hmm.
And the personal development in my network marketing company certainly helped there, but there was certainly something else lingering, if you like,
Hmm.
on that. And I think yes, we have those limiting beliefs, and we have to dig much, much further down in order to release some of those. So I invested in a course with Peter Sage, who's a British guy,
Hmm.
rather than most of the American personal development gurus out there. He was one of Tony Robbins's trainers, and I'm sure most people have heard of Tony Robbins. And it was going through his course that I realized what was remaining with me as an overhang, if you like, from that divorce was the fact that forgiveness is a big, big issue, if you like. And
Hmm.
I think I got to the stage of forgiving my ex-husband, but I think the biggest realization for me, and I have spoken to several people since, is it's not forgiving somebody else. Everything we have is inside us. And the biggest revelation was actually forgiving myself. And I think once I'd done that, that was a huge lifting off my shoulders, off my body, everything. So, we have to, the problem with that, I suppose, is we have to be willing to be honest with ourselves and go and look inside for the various values and rules and things that we have around those values. Forgiving somebody is not condoning whatever behavior that's caused that unforgiveness, if you like, to start with. But it was certainly a big eye opener for me.
And what enabled you? What did that? You said you had this realization or this process of forgiveness, and there was a weight lifted from your shoulders. And what did that change for you in your life experience?
It completely changed my perspective of life. It brought me back far more joy in the fact, far more comfortable with myself, what I have to offer, rather than, yes, beating yourself up, I suppose, which we're all guilty of, because that little voice that I referred to earlier, it's not just with regards to business. It's probably more. I can't remember what they say now. Is it something like we have 10,000 thoughts a day or whatever? And, the majority of them can be negative unless you actually train your mind to cancel those out and think on the positive, which, is not easy. But then I don't think anything that's worth it in life is meant to be easy. We're meant to learn. They're the challenges set before us by life.
It's not supposed to be easy. That's what that's a sentence there's one guy and he talks about the hero's journey. And he says that if you're on a journey, on the hero's journey, even if you're in the beginning and you don't know where even you want to go, and what's maybe the thing, like you were in the beginning where you kind of were testing these different things, like selling the beds and then starting your own business, which is it's a journey, and you don't know where you're gonna come out. Like if back then you wouldn't have known that at this
No,
age you're gonna be at this point in life. You
absolutely not, Lucas. If you'd have told me that, I'd have said, no, that's absolutely mad, because the personal development has given me far, far more confidence. There's no way, if you'd have asked me onto this podcast 20 years ago, I can tell you now what the answer would have been, and I wouldn't be here now. So no, absolutely not. But I think, yeah, okay, when we actually achieve something, that achievement and that joy, if you like, lasts for a short period of time before we're looking realistically for the next challenge. But what joy do you get when you overcome those challenges? And I think it's those challenges that sometimes, well, probably, yeah, most of the time, give us what we get out of life, and seeing essentially some of the people that I've introduced into my business. So I'm going to call them my team members, just seeing how they've grown and what personal development has actually done for them is phenomenal. We talk about fulfillment. Yeah, I don't think there's any greater gift. Mm.
Do you have a few minutes? Because I would love to ask you something, which
Okay.
do you mind if we go a few minutes over time?
No, that's okay.
Because I'm in my own business or the project I'm currently doing, there's a lot about habits, and habits has always been a big thing for me. And back when I had Chaminda on, for example, he had a habit of he listens to a lot of audiobooks. Like he always, when he's driving, he calls it no extra time. I think that's the term
Hmm.
from Tony Robbins, where like
Okay.
you use the time you have when you're driving with the bus, when you're
Yep.
walking somewhere, and you pop in, if you like that medium, an audiobook or a podcast or
Hmm.
something that inspires you, that gives you some good input. So I'm curious about what habits would you recommend to, let's say, a young entrepreneur or somebody who's listening to this, who's really inspired. They say, oh, maybe I want to build this residual income, and they want to progress. What would you tell them?
No, I think Chuminder's absolutely spot on that, to be fair. And yeah, we've called it, your university education in your car. Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
As I mentioned to you earlier, I read at least 10 pages of a personal development book every day. It's usually in the morning. It's part of my morning routine.
Mhm.
And a lot, I don't use, since COVID, I don't use my car as much as I used to, but I do like to get my steps in. And if you follow me on Facebook on my stories, you'll have seen that. Yes, that is one of my things that I do like to get out every day and have a walk. Not quite so much when it's throwing it down with rain, shall we say, but there we go. So listening to something while I'm out and about, I will do that as well. Not all the time, because sometimes I think it's just really nice to be out in nature and
Mm.
just be inspired by what's around you. Just listening to the birds sing, see the
Mm.
sun when it's there, watch the clouds and just be there. Because most of these times we're all busy rushing here, rushing there. We never take time to just sit down or go out for a walk and just be there, with nature and just appreciate what we have.
Mm. Well, I think that rounds it out really nicely. Do you want to finish with something, or maybe you can tell us a little bit where we can find you, or what do you have something currently that you want to introduce people to, that you want to share with us? Or what's your current, because you talk about excitement before. Like what's exciting you at the moment that
What's exciting me at the moment? I'd love to have conversations with people who are looking to improve their lives if they've got some beliefs that they think, oh,
Mhm.
yeah, okay, I need to do something about this. Somebody who wants to invest time in themselves to improve themselves. Whether that's because they would like to earn some more money, or whether
Mhm.
that's because they would like to improve themselves personally. Yeah, you can certainly find me on Facebook and or LinkedIn. I am
Mhm.
on some of the other social media channels as well, but I don't think it's quite so easy to send messages, etc., on them. So yeah, LinkedIn or Facebook would be
Mhm.
my preferred methods for people to get in touch with me. Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant.
Thank
I
you,
will
Lucas.
I will link those below. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Ah,
much for taking us on this journey with you today, Kathryn.
Thank
I
you for
enjoyed it.
inviting me. Thank you for inviting me, Lucas. Yeah, privilege and absolutely welcome. My
Have a,
pleasure.
have a great rest of your Sunday, and everybody listening as well.
Thank you so much, Lucas.
Thank you, Kathryn.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.